see you found our little hiding spot in the universe. Don't get too comfortable. This is a place where you will find those with an experience that's out of this world, or possibly deep within your life. I welcome you to the Oracles with James Tyson. Lean forward and listen. We will pull you into a supernatural journey with guests from around the world, each one experiencing some of the most extraordinary phenomena this wee planet has to offer. Now, here are the Oracles with James Tyson.
Thank you, Liam. And hey, thank you, listener, for tuning in to this episode of the Oracles with James Tyson. It's me, James. And today with me is a friend of mine from Texas, Jacqueline Rose Laws. She is one with an interesting story. She does readings. She is an intuitive, but a little bit more than that. It's how she got from where she was to where she is now. Now, Jacqueline isn't one of those people that has like 20,000 followers on YouTube or a huge Instagram following, or has written 7 books on woo-woo things, which is kind of one of the main reasons I brought her here, because her story is actually a little bit different and a little bit outside the box. And we get into why that is. And just a heads up, is it's actually her introduction to a psychologist who recommends meditation. I know, right? So that is kind of cool. And that opened a door that sent her off on the path that she's on now. You can follow her on her YouTube, The Spiritual Life of Jacqueline Rose. Instagram is Spirit Life of Jacqueline. So the only 2 places you'll find her. She doesn't have a website. Like I say, she's not an author, but she's a very interesting lady to kind of listen to and see what's happened since the beginning of her path and where she's been and where she has got to today. Jacqueline Rose is a bright light. And I was going to say a bright light in the woo-woo community. She's found her way a little bit differently. What we're going to talk about is we're going to touch a little bit on childhood trauma and intuitiveness, maybe possibly where this comes from in her family, how it got through, recommendations of meditation, again, from the psychologist, expanding consciousness, and what she believes her path is now. And she does readings. So if you actually want her reading, at the end of this, if you think, yeah, that person's kind of switched on, that person is a medium between a higher source and the person she's reading for. If you can feel that, if you understand that, definitely get a hold of her. And again, subscribe to her YouTube if you have YouTube. And that's The Spiritual Life of Jacqueline Rose. And if you don't have YouTube, bounce over to her Instagram account, Spirit Life of Jacqueline. And you guys wait here. I'm going to go get her. Jacqueline, how are you today?
I'm doing great. Thank you.
Well, thank you for dropping by. Which part of the world are you in?
I'm in Austin, Texas.
Austin. I want to go to Austin. I have so many friends down there.
So
and
nice.
Friends from up here in British Columbia and Vancouver, they travel down to Austin to go to nightclubs and bars down there.
Oh, yeah.
See, crazy. You've got a really, really interesting story. Now, I bumped into you on social media. We were riding the train together. No, hold on, that's not right. Yeah, it's weird. Kind of, I follow kind of similar woo-woo, kind of more of the spiritual kind of people. Mm-hmm. Saw what you did. Saw a couple of your YouTube things, and it's at The Spiritual Life of Jacqueline Rose. Mm-hmm. On YouTube. So please go to The Spiritual Life of Jacqueline Rose on YouTube and subscribe to her channel. And I noticed there was a couple of very interesting things. The first real interesting one I bumped into was how you got from who you were to who you are now. Mm-hmm. Can you kind of give us a quick review on that and on how you got onto this path?
So about 4 years ago, so I'm going to start off with this. 4 years ago, I went to a local psychic here in Austin. Her name is Leslie Warnling. She's amazing. And I had never been to a psychic. I've gone to like psychic shows, but I'd never had a one-on-one. And in the first 20 minutes of our reading, and I told her nothing, she talked about my own abilities, talked about me being clairvoyant, clairaudient, and clairsentient. And I really didn't even like know what that meant, but I always kept note of it. And she told me I needed to start meditating to connect to the other side. And I went home and meditated for a few days and didn't really know what meditation was about. Nothing happened. So I just stopped, continued doing the same crap that I always do. And then fast forward about 2 more years is when I started a weight loss journey. And I started going to therapy to figure out why I kept gaining and losing weight. I knew that there was an addiction going on to food. And I kept gaining 10 pounds, losing 20 pounds, doing it over and over again. And so then I went to a weight loss clinic to have somebody hold me accountable. So I was just kind of on this, not intentional, but on this journey to improve myself. I just wanted to lose weight. And when I started going to my therapist, she did something called EMDR on me. And it's basically like a reprogramming of a traumatic experience that happened to me.
And EMDR is eye movement desensitization and reprocessing. Desensitization. Yes. Eye movement desensitization and reprocessing.
Yes. And I did that, and within a course, none of this was intentionally. I started to do meditation again. She said, you really should do meditation. And I told her about the psychic and stuff, and she was like, well, you might be empathic and stuff like that. And so within that weekend of me doing that EMDR and started to do meditation, I started just to perceive life differently and started to notice that the universe was communicating with me. And I started to look at my past and stop saying that things were coincidences. I started to just put the puzzle pieces together. And I started getting these downloads and all these, it was crazy. For me, I literally started Googling, am I going crazy? Because I didn't know what else to do. So I Googled it, and then stuff was coming up about a spiritual awakening. So I started to research what is a spiritual awakening. And then that's what I was like, this is exactly what's happening to me. I'm seeing life differently. And when I would go into meditations, which now looking back, I didn't realize, first of all, that not everybody visualizes stuff. So I started talking to people, and they're like, I said, yeah, I visualize everything. When people are talking, there's a story going on in my mind. And they were like, no, I don't do that. That's just words. So I just assume people live life like I do, right? And so when I started going into these meditations, I started seeing flashes of words and pictures and kaleidoscopes and Indians and all these things that I think before was going on, but I was so in my mind that I never really picked up on what was going on, really, what was right in front of my face. And so I started just stepping out of my comfort zone and asking people, the first time, because I wanted some, clarification that I was getting correct, signals. And one night I was meditating, and I saw my neighbor and her husband in my meditation. And all of a sudden I saw her sister, and then I saw the Philippines and a word come across. And my neighbor is from Mexico, her and her family. So I was like, what is the Philippines? So I text my neighbor, and I'm like, does the Philippines mean anything to you? And she was like, yeah, my nephew's going to the Philippines in December. And I was just floored that okay. I go, I don't know what this means. I know that her mother had died recently. And I was like, I don't know if your mother's giving me signals or something, but something's going on where I got this in my meditations. And that's what happens a lot of the times. I'll be in a meditation and I'll just see a flash of a picture. And I try to remember it, because it's kind of hard in the meditation because you're at that really relaxed state. And the next day I'll see that thing. So I try to write things down. And one day I had a meditation of some girl I went to high school with. I wasn't even really good friends with her. and I saw like an envelope with money sitting on it. So I go out of my comfort zone. I'm gonna sound like a crazy person, but I reached out to her and I asked her, does that mean anything to you? And she said that on her table there was money in an envelope sitting on her table on top of books, and it was from her grandfather that just passed away. And her mom had just brought the money over, and her husband were talking about naming their baby her grandfather's name. And I was like, she was like, what does that mean? And I'm like, I don't know. I'm just here to tell you that I saw that. And maybe it's your grandfather reaching out, trying to, communicate with you. I don't know, but I'm just here to be a vessel. And that's what, with this spiritual awakening, I say self-realization is really me just like noticing things that I didn't notice before that were always there. They were always sitting there in front of my face, but now I'm just more self-aware, or I'm more in the present moment and not so much in the head. And so I was able to pick up on things that most people aren't picking up on, but I believe that everybody has these abilities. We're just not taught, that you have them and you have to exercise them. And so meditation really changed my life. And I think the little twerk of the EMDR helped me too. And so I'm a big advocate of meditation. And what I decided to do with that was, this was not my intent. I just knew something inside of me told me like I needed to like help. Like something was like, you got to help. And so I just started researching coaching people. So that's really what I do, is I use my intuition and cards and try to pick up on patterns that people are not seeing in themselves and what is really keeping them stuck in the same patterns in their behaviors. Because I really apply the same thing I did to weight loss, is just rewiring in new patterns. But a lot of, including myself, have blind spots to my own behaviors. And so sometimes you need an outward perspective for somebody to look and go, okay, maybe you're not noticing this, or maybe you can look at it from this perspective. And I just changed my view on like, I know it's cliche, but life is happening for us and it's not to us. So if you take the outer reality and use that as information, and I also don't believe in coincidences. So everything's coming in to teach me to use the information for my greater good, either to have a different behavior, did I do this before? And then pick up on the signs that angels are, for me, it's very easy. I'll just ask, like, if I'm supposed to do this, show me this, or if I'm not supposed to do this, block it for me, please just lead me. And it's easy. I'll see what I need to see all the time. So I in my coaching, I teach those things to people too, give them the power and not make me the guru, right? I'm not the guru or anything. I'm just showing you what I learned. And so that's really what I do.
It's quite a bit. You're doing quite a bit. Now, I'm going to take you back to what you said at the beginning there, or near the beginning. You talked about downloads,
Yes.
getting downloads. What are downloads and how did you receive them? How do you process that?
Well, I went back to my psychic, my psychic Leslie, because I was noticing, like, you get in this flow state in whatever you're doing. And what I would do is I would dance around a lot. Like in my house, I would just put on music and get out of my mind, right? I'd just be in this flow state. And all of a sudden I would just have these kind of epiphanies, like ideas or something I didn't notice before, or just realizations. And that's what I call downloads. It would just be, something like this new idea. Like there was one time I connected on YouTube. I started doing YouTube before many people were following me, and I was dancing in my kitchen, and I had this follower, one of my first followers that like watched every video. And I was at first on YouTube, I was just, there was no editing. I was just sharing my journey. I was like, somebody out there will see this. Somebody, if they need a friend, I'm just going to be vulnerable. And something like went in my brain, my download that said, she needs to be singing. She needs to sing. She needs to sing wherever she can. And so I didn't know her personally. So I just uploaded a video and I was like, hey, you know who you are. I have this message that you need to be practicing your music. You need to be singing everywhere you can. And she messaged me that she was in her car and she was upset, and she was like asking God, like, should I be doing my music? And then my video comes up right there on her phone, and it's to her saying, hey, you need to be singing. So like, I don't plan that, right? So that's what I mean by downloads. It's just like information. And I stopped worrying what people thought of me. I didn't care anymore because it wasn't about that. So I was like, I'm just going to tell people what's going on, and they can take the information. They can think I'm weird, and that, you know, they don't have anything to do with me. So that's kind of what the downloads are for me.
Yeah, that's kind of cool. I had a different perception of a download once. I kind of do a meditation just to relax and go to sleep sometimes. And all of a sudden a completely different meditation was inserted. It came to me, and it was all about forgiveness and going back as far as I could and forgiving the first person that bullied or hurt me or whatever. And it was a full meditation based on this. And I went through the whole thing, and my viewer and listener, they know all about this anyway, so I'm not going to review it or go over it again. But that was like something that was completely out of my mind all of a sudden comes in, and it was technical, and it was in a pattern, and it was steps that I had to follow. So I was like, okay, that's what a download is. I understand now, but I also understand, like, what you get is, it's almost like you're describing being a medium.
Yeah.
You're getting
a message.
Know where
it comes from, you know, because the inner child in me would be very, very scared to share any information, or I would just be like, oh, that's nothing, because that's what I did most of my life. But now it's like, where the hell did that come from? And now I notice it because I'm more self-aware of these things.
Well, you read cards now too. What do you do? Oracle cards or
Oracle cards?
Yeah. So the information you get from that, do you consider that a download, or is that information from a guide that they have to you, their guide to your guide to you, and out the mouth to them?
Maybe a download, because what I usually use the cards on, and when I started using these cards, it was crazy, because like the same card would keep flying out, and you're just like, okay, how am I shuffling this? And this card keeps, but yeah, a part of it is like a download, because I use it when I'm coaching people. If I feel the need to like get a little information, I use it to kind of help me with my coaching as well. Good. And so, yes, I do think it's a download. I just really ask my ancestors and, guides just to help me basically be a vessel. And any tool that I use, I'm doing it with intent and purpose to help other people. So I just put that in all of my work, and everything that I do is really with the most integrity.
How's your confidence in over the time that you started reading cards to now? Did you have a point at one point where it was, you'd do a reading and then you'd call your psychic friend and saying, okay, this is what I did. Was I right?
No, because the cards,
for you. I did
ahead.
that, and I got a psychic timeout for a year. I couldn't read.
Oh, really?
All my guides stepped back and said, fine, if you don't trust yourself, we'll move on. It's like,
oh, really?
I couldn't read. And because I used to have a live internet radio show and had psychics come on it all the time. And 3 of them told me individually, oh no, your guides are pissed. they all backed off because you have no confidence.
You're not trusting in yourself.
Yeah. And as soon as I started focusing and trusting, it all came back. I was just double checking because it happened to me. I'm hoping it happened to somebody else.
Well, I've, started off on like, neighbors and friends and stuff like that. And they always took something from it, Yeah. And so they always were like, yeah, that's right on. And for me, it's not me. You know what I'm saying? These are the cards, and this is what it says, and you can apply it how you want to apply it. You can believe it. You don't have to believe it. It's up to you. So I've never really like put myself into the cards other than just being a vessel. So,
yeah, you're the medium between the information to the person, the conduit.
And sometimes, like, even with my coaching, this happens a lot, actually, and I remember this happening years ago, where there was words coming out of my mouth, and it's almost like they weren't from me. It's not stuff that I would say.
Yeah. And
that's what happens sometimes. It's like a rapid, like I just start saying things and I'm like, okay, I don't know why I said all that, but take what you want from it. This is what's happening. I can feel it.
I'm sorry. Sometimes have you given a reading to somebody and then not remember what you said?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's quite common when you're getting that kind of channeled information.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why you always say, please record this, because and don't ask me later.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I use an app called Marco Polo. I don't know if you've heard of this app, but it's like
No.
it's a video, it's like text message, but it's a video text message. So you just video and talk, and then they can look at it when they want to, and then they video back and forth. So it's like you're texting back and forth through video. And so I do a lot of my coaching or readings through that. So they always have the recording of it. And then I can look back at it too and remember what I was even talking about, because it's just flowing out. So that's been with COVID, that's been really nice, because I've been able to connect with a lot of people, you know.
Yeah. Excuse me. You said COVID, I coughed. COVID-7. I'm fine. It's okay. I've coughed in public and people stop. I go, oh no, COVID-9. I'm good. It's not the other one. I was quite impressed. We were talking off air, but I was very impressed that you went to a psychologist who pointed you in the direction of meditation.
Yes.
I was very impressed with that lady, whoever did that, because that is very cool.
She told me, and I didn't know what she was talking about then, because when you're not there, you're not there, right? And so she was telling me, she was like, you should meditate. It's like a flower and you'll open up. And I just remember being like, oh, okay. And then when I started doing it, I was like, oh, I get what she's talking about now. Like, yeah, exactly. Because if you don't know, you don't know. And so I do remember going back to her and being like, something has changed in me. And she was excited about it. And now I look at her card and it's like body, mind, and spirit. And it has like, she does hypnosis, but I didn't even notice those things when I found her. You know, like I say, it's not a coincidence. I just saw that it was a woman and I wanted to go to a woman therapist. Yeah. And so it just ended up being who I needed at the time to, like, you know, expand my consciousness, you know, and that's what I really think I'm here for, is to help other people expand their consciousness, especially in this time right now. Yes.
Yes. And in the use of social media too is interesting. And I just want to remind you that social media is, think of it as something where we just put things out and not receive things. Don't accept, don't anticipate or request good things coming back from it. Because it's social media. Most people, there are people out there who are very negative and they will pick on you and they'll throw things back. Don't take that. Don't take it, because your flower's doing this. Don't worry about what's coming. Once you've put it out, turn and walk away, find something else to put out, but don't worry about the criticisms that come at you for it. It's not something you should carry. And, not that you probably get them anyway, but.
No, I really don't. I'm lucky so far, but one of my best friends is a pretty successful YouTuber. She does makeup. She started her own business and everything. And so she kind of warned me about the people that would be negative. I don't really get a whole lot of negativity. Every once in a while I do, but I also understand, like, whenever I'm projecting something, it's you know, something in me. So when other people are projecting, it's something in them. So I never take it, I really don't take things personal anymore. And like, sometimes my ego will want to like take it personal, but I'll remember, like, you know, we're all on our own journey and we're all learning our own lessons. And so I just don't take those things personal. And if I do, then that's also information for me. Like, why am I taking it personal? What is unhealed, you know? So it's always information, negative and positive. It's all, you know, it's all the game with the self, right? It's only you. So I don't really have a whole lot of negativity, you know?
That's good.
And if I do, I'm like, I'm sure I'm an easy target for negativity, because they know I'm not going to respond, you know?
Yeah, I'm one of those too, where I just kind of giggle and shake my head. Yeah. But then I was a policeman. So I was like we got police training where I'm from in Canada, especially with the Royal Canadian Mounted Police. We had a drill corporal who would stand in front of you and yell and scream at you, like you'd see in the Marine Corps or whatever. That kind of military base, guy, little riding crop, walking stick on. Rah, 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 you piece of crap! Your parents should have fed you to the hogs while your bones were still soft. And they would just rail on you the whole time until you giggled, and then you get mad at you when you giggled and make you do push-ups. But so when you got out on the street, you kind of went, people would say something and you look at them and go, that's nothing compared to what I went through in training. So but it's, you know, my skin isn't that thin, but I can some people will say things that'll look, and it's almost like I feel sorry for them. And I just,
Yes.
but I do,
Compassion.
yeah, it's more of a compassionate thing. Really a lot when I used to work, when I was a policeman, I really, that compassion switch flipped on. When someone was acting out, or because a lot of times there's mental health issues, which led into drug abuse and other things. And you just have to take that as it is. But in social media, I find there's the veil of anonymity, being alone, anonymity, yeah,
Got it.
that veil. the, you can basically hide in your mother's basement on the computer and say anything you want. And I do feel sorry for those people, but they sneak into conversations sometimes that are pretty, you might be talking to somebody in a thread about something very emotional to the person and tragic, and all of a sudden it gets hit by one of these yahoos, and you're like, dude, I know you have problems too, but get in the queue. But
Exactly.
so it's a little bit hard. We were talking to Jacqueline Rose Laws, Laws, and she has a YouTube channel, The Spiritual Life of Jacqueline Rose. Jacqueline, because there's a CQ, and I'm Canadian. And you're in, again, just outside of Austin, Texas. Are you from Texas originally?
Yes. I was born in San Antonio, which is about an hour away from Austin, but I was raised in Austin. I've been here since I was a baby, because San Antonio and Austin are very different vibes. And Austin is, it's funny because when I had this awakening, I had this feeling that a lot of people were a lot of people have always moved to Austin, but a lot of spiritual people were going to move to the area. And within the last year, I've just seen a flood of these spiritual people moving to Austin, which isn't surprising because it's our slogan is keep Austin weird. So it's very hippie and hipster, but it's really young. I mean, there's a lot of people here, but it's really young, and it has this really inclusive vibe, which I love.
Yeah.
Which basically raised me. That's why I am the way I am, is because of the vibe of Austin,
It's interesting. A lot of the people oh, sorry. Go ahead. I'm sorry, I cut you off.
No, I said, but Texas is a completely different animal. Austin is they say, it's the oasis of Texas, which it is.
Yeah, I've been to Dallas and Fort Worth and El Paso.
Yeah, not the same.
Yeah, it's I saw the Rio Grande in El Paso, and it was 40 feet wide, full of garbage.
Yeah.
So that kind of all the John Wayne movies, when I'm like, what? No, Rio Grande's got to be a river, and no, it was a creek, and it was dried. It was a very bad week for the Rio Grande. I should have phoned ahead. Yeah, Austin. A lot of the people I hang out with here love going to Austin, and for burlesque.
Oh.
Yeah, there was a bunch of burlesquers would go down to Austin. Yeah.
I remember there was clubs. This was years ago, though, when I used to go to clubs. That I remember they were having burlesque dancers have different time spots. So I remember that being big. There's a huge dance community in Austin.
Yeah.
A huge, of all kinds.
Well, it's a very artistic area.
Yes.
Downtown.
Yes.
A lot. Yeah. Yes, there's a lot of clubs and things like that, but it's an art kind of area.
Yeah.
So there's a bit of that in Tucson, Arizona too. There's a little chunk of Tucson that's very eclectic. Eclectic's a good way of putting it.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
Very eclectic. The city is the people are very eclectic. But there are beautiful people here. I'm very blessed. My husband has mentioned, why don't we move? And I'm like, if it's in Texas, I don't want to move anywhere in Texas other than Austin. And so I come from a really nice city, so I would never want to move away from here unless it was a really cool place again, So
well,
I'm lucky.
If you like a cool place, Northern Canada is very cool. Minus 40 cool. So.
No, it's not cool like that here. I mean, in the summers, it's 110, so it's super hot. But we do have some beautiful weather. Right now, it's 70 degrees, so.
Oh, shut up. It's probably 55 here right now. And in the summer, maybe it gets up to like 90 or so,
Oh,
but we're right on the coast, so we get all the coastal breezes and things. Inland and higher up on like the plateaus or the prairies, it'd be like in the hundreds, or even
yeah.
inland from here. You go inland an hour, and there's deserts and tumbleweed and 110 during the summer.
Oh,
But
that's
right now, those same areas are covered in 2.5, 3 feet of snow. So
crazy.
kind of like Colorado, Montana.
Oh, okay. I just went to Colorado for the first time a few months ago, so I
Oh,
understand it.
cool.
We drove there.
You drove?
Yeah, we drove. It was like 14 hours, something
That's
like
not
that.
bad. That's like
Yeah.
me driving to Tombstone,
Oh, okay.
or is it
Yeah.
Tombstone? I can't remember. Um, no, Tombstone's further away. It was 14 hours from Virginia City, Nevada. I think it was. I was going to have to drive 14 hours or something. I can't remember. Before the apocalypse hit last year, I was supposed to be in Virginia City at a ghost conference on the beginning of May. And then the mid of May, I was supposed to be in Tombstone for a ghost conference, and then I was supposed to be in Joshua Tree, California, first weekend of June for Contact in the Desert. So I was going to drive, and I was
That's
like
so cool.
planning out where I was going to be driving to.
And then the apocalypse.
And then apocalypse came. Yeah. I
Oh,
was also
yeah.
supposed to go to Sturgis on my motorcycle again, and the apocalypse screwed that up. Crazy, but it'll work. We'll figure this out.
Yes, we will.
Apocalypse out of the way. When you're reading for people, do you see things over and up behind them sometimes?
What I normally see, I started to see auras. I went to a meditation trainer, and I started seeing I started seeing green coming off of her shoulders, which had never happened, and I start to see auras around people. I see a lot. I see energy. I see sprinkles. I'll go to people's houses. And again, I didn't realize that people don't see the same things I saw. I just thought it was, everybody sees like I did. And all of a sudden, a part of their wall or something in the background will start to kind of like form and move. And almost I describe it like, when you're looking over a barbecue pit, the air looks kind of weird.
With the heat,
I'll start to see that in different parts of my house. When I started to wake up, I started to see that a lot. Some of it would scare me because I would see it at night. I have that, what is it called? I think it's called like static vision. Like I see everything looks and I've got my eyes checked, so I'm fine. But everything looks almost like a static screen, and sometimes that will form. And then I've been outside of the front of my house, and one time, which I don't understand, it almost looked like a translucent like wall came up, and it was of a bunch of like geometric shapes. So things like that started happening to me when I started to wake up. And I always saw energy. Like I would look in the air, but the psychic was like, look and see if you see energy in the air. And I started looking like past, and I would see all these sprinkles of lights and all these energy coming together and like sprinkling around. And then I see a tunnel, which I'm still trying to figure this out. Usually it's like I feel like when there's a transition in my life, but I'll be driving or walking or reading, and then this tunnel will appear, this like translucent tunnel. And I asked the psychic that I go to, and she said she thinks I'm being able to pick up on me moving through time and space, because I didn't understand why I was seeing this.
Interesting.
And so those are like the visual things. And then a lot of the visual things in my meditations. But when I'm reading for somebody, I haven't like actually seen. Now, my mother, on the other hand, has told me that she sees full body apparitions. So when she starts sharing these things with me, I was like, okay, this might be something that goes on in our family. Now this makes a little bit more sense.
And you would most likely get it from your mother's side. Does she have Welsh, Irish, Scottish, Scandinavian, German, or
she's a
American?
She's a McDougal. McDougal's her name. So Irish.
So,
I believe so. Yeah. So she's told me she sees full body apparitions. She's a bit further along on her journey. I told you that she studies the Course of Miracles, and she's been doing that for about 7 years. And we didn't talk for a long time. For about 7 years, we didn't talk. And so it was a crazy story that I had her on my vision board that I would like to reconnect with her some way, somehow. And I had blocked her number from my phone so she couldn't call me. And one day I was in my car after I started this journey, and she called me, and I picked up the phone, and she was like, "I'm surprised you call," and immediately started saying, "Well, I've heard that you talk about the same things that I talk about. And a lot of these, things have happened to me, and I wanted to discuss them with you." And I hadn't talked to this woman in 7 years. So I was just kind of like, this is the weirdest crap ever. And I had to get off of the phone because I was going somewhere. And the next day she tried to call me because I said I would call her at a certain time. And since the phone number was blocked, so I don't know how she ever was able to get through to me in the first place, she couldn't call me. And I tried to call her and I couldn't call her, like, because the number was blocked. So I had to literally call the phone company, unblock it so I can actually have a conversation. So it kind of shows you, like, when things are meant to happen, that you're supposed to reconnect with somebody. And at that point, we had a big falling out, but I just didn't have any more resentment towards my mom. I just, we're all on our journey, and I understood where she came from her past. And, so it's been interesting working with her too, because she's a little bit further along, and she teaches me a lot about the ego and ego death and stuff like that. So it's been crazy. The last couple of years have been really crazy, how things just like fall into place. Once you start to really understand, like, the laws of the universe, somebody actually teaches you, or you go out there and actually go, okay, this is how life actually works. And then you're able to, like, open up all these magical doors that have literally been right in front of you. But you didn't know.
Yeah, they seem to always have been around us. It's like we've newly discovered things that have been there ever since we were kids. I
know. Even when I watch movies now, it's like, how did I not pick up on the symbolism of these movies, and how, I remember I had a boyfriend before my husband. I told you earlier, I've been with my husband for 19 years, but the boyfriend before my husband was an atheist, and he loved the movie The Matrix. And he took me to see it, and he was like, what if life is like this? And I was like, well, what am I going to do about it? Right? Like, I was like, I don't know. How would I know? And then after me going through this, I was like, oh, okay, I get the Matrix. I get what the symbolism is. I get why he was in my life, because at that time, I was raised Catholic. I wasn't ever super religious, but I was raised Catholic, and I was dating an atheist. And even at the end of our relationship, I was like, I just want to tell you that, like, you taught me to not just think inside of this box, to go outside of that box. And there's other ways of looking at life. And so I see that certain people come into your life to teach you certain things and to learn certain things from them. And, 19 years later, I'm like, oh, I get what I was supposed to learn from that person, what I was supposed to take away from that person. So it's a different perception of life. You're just perceiving life differently. It means something different than it used to, I'm not spinning my wheels as much.
my quote unquote awakening was in 2012. I went to see a psychic, like, out of the blue. Just friends of mine said, oh, you should go see a psychic. Okay, fine. Went to see a psychic. Phenomenal. Knew my mother's name, described her standing over my shoulder, told me about all these dead people I saw when I was a kid. Be my dog barking outside.
It's okay.
Anyway, it was fascinating that the actual Kirby. I don't know if you can hear him. He's
barely.
Yeah, okay. He's in the background greeting the mailman, I guess.
I'm sure.
But it was one of those, like, again, in hindsight, you look back and go, oh, these people were introduced into my life, bringing pieces of the puzzle.
Yes.
And I don't have the complete puzzle.
Yes.
When I do, then we're going to check out. But they all came at certain times. And those are the negative people too. Those are, as a policeman, there was some really negative people I interacted with. But I look back and the way at the end of my career, I thought, well, I was introduced into the lives of people. A lot of times they didn't want me there. And that when I left that interaction, it possibly deflected them onto a better path. Maybe at the time they didn't think so, But if they were to look back at it 10 years later, they're going, oh yeah, that was a moment, and that
Oh yeah.
kind of changed the path. And I'd like to think it was always for the good.
You hope.
But
That's what we're here to do, is plant those good seeds, you know.
yeah. And I see when I do readings, I was doing the card readings, and when I got the time out, and then I came back, I would do a reading for somebody, and I'd look at them, and I would see somebody standing to their left. And that person would give me hand signals. This meant that they were on path. This meant that they had to work on themselves, which I usually didn't even tell them, because everyone has to work on themselves. This meant they had to work on somebody else. This means they have an important decision coming up. This means they had to let go. And then the other one that I was getting was it was a bag of seeds, and they were going like this. So somebody like you, I would have get, the lady standing there with the bag of seeds, which means you're just providing people with information. You're giving them information about who they are and their path. Now, whether that seed hits them in the top of the head and it germinates today or 10 years from now is up to their path and up to them. Your job was just to go,
Yep.
That quick interaction at that point in your lives, that little intersection, that's all you had to do.
Yep.
And, we talk about, is there the one for me? The universe sends us that one all the time.
Yep.
It comes in different people. But if it doesn't hit you at the time you're supposed to, if the Velcro isn't matched, it's just going to bounce off, and the one will end up coming back on another day. But it's always coming. It's we're all connected in that way, and we're all walking around with a piece of a puzzle. And
so true. And we're all like learning off of it. At least I'm trying to learn off of every situation. Even like when I was talking about my mom, there was so much like resentment from my childhood. And then there was one day, it was just like another, those, you get awakening and then you get tons of awakenings afterwards, that I realized that, and this is probably what helped me let go of resentment, was that there were a lot of unconscious behaviors that my mom did to me that I was actually doing to my son, and I wasn't conscious of it. So I was able to take that information and go, how am I giving my son that same message, but it may look a little different? So, and then I was like, oh, my mom didn't intentionally do that. She was just trying to survive, just like I'm not intentionally doing it. And so it was a great waking up for me, because now I can change my family history by my waking up and my behavior, by doing something different with my kids, so. And then I didn't have any more resentment for my mom. I was like, I get it. I'm surviving. I'm doing the best I can. So is she. We all have journeys. And so, yeah, it's all these little seeds that we plant. And also, like, when I was younger, when I was always in my ego, when the ego was really controlling the game, I would give people information. And if they didn't listen to me, I'd get mad. Now it's just kind of like, they'll get it if they get it. And if they don't, they don't. That's cool. That has nothing to do.
The seed is there.
Yep.
I've given you the seed. It's up to you.
And you can do what you want with it, because, for me, when I first woke up, I was just kind of like, oh my God, I got to tell everybody there's this, it's you can do things different. You can be happy. And I thought I was happy in the past until I actually got happy. And I was like, oh, I wasn't happy back then. And you tell everybody and they're like, you're nuts. I don't know what you're talking about, because they're not there yet, Yeah. And then I realized that it's okay. You don't have to convince people. That's not what you're here to do. You're just here to be it. You have to live it, embody it. I even taught when people get into religion, I'm like, Jesus came to show you how to be, to embody the love of God. You have to embody that and be it, and just hope that, it lands where it lands, and that you just, draw like a magnet the people that are supposed to be in your life. And then it is magical, where you just see people drop out of your life and then people come towards you. So I always that's what, meditation is learning to observe. So I just start, sitting back and watching. I watch a lot of things. What's going on? What am I doing? What are my reactions? What are their reactions? Just observe it, and you can get a lot of information. Yeah. But, you know, it is a switching of perceiving life, you know?
It is. And, you know, you mentioned religion and people looking, some people who are very devout in whatever religion they are, looking at somebody who has a spiritual bend to them, arc to them, and they're very critical. And I run into this a lot with smudging, with Palo Santo wood or something.
Oh yeah.
Where you say, "Oh, yeah, that is pagan." I go, "Really? Have you been to a Catholic mass?" And a guy swinging this incensey thing. Well, you know what they're doing, right? They're clearing away negative. In the Jewish religion does the same thing.
In the body of Christ, or drinking the blood, it's all ritual, you know? Or even like the pagan, you know, bringing in Christmas trees, or if you really get down to it, it's just kind of like, it's all, you know. And yes. I explained that to some of my religious friends. I started doing saging a long time ago. I just was like, I like to cover all my bases. Before anything happened, I'd have Buddha and like anything I got to protect my space I was doing. So I get what you're saying.
I'll come back at them and say, you remember the 3 things the wise men brought to baby Jesus? 2 of them are for smudging.
Right. There you go. Good point. Good.
Quit using my religion against me.
Exactly.
Or my beliefs against me. The other one was meditation. Oh, meditate. Oh, that's bad. I said it's praying.
Somebody said praying is you talking to God, and meditation is God talking to you. And I was like, oh.
It's communication with a higher source.
Mm-hmm. And until you experience it, and if you cut it off, then you cut it off. Oh, I'm not going to do it. Until you experience it for yourself, you can't give it to any. Like, you have to go into meditation and start to experience that, you know, that connection.
Yeah. My use of meditation has primarily been to build a bubble so dead people won't bother me at night.
Well, that's good.
It's good now. Now I can sleep through the whole night.
I was about to say.
Except children ghosts will still come through, little buggers. But the other ones, there are rules and they'll stay out. And I use Archangel Michael is very, very allegedly, and I guess it is, he's very, very strong in me. And same with the Archangel Heniel, who is one of the 2 archangels that were real people at one time, her and Metatron.
Oh, really?
Sounds like a transformer. But
I know. I always think that too.
I am Metatron. Yeah, he was a guy who was on the Exodus, the 40 years of walking in the wilderness. He was one of the guys on that. He was elevated to archangel, which I always wonder, was he an archangel to start with? That was just there hanging out as a human.
Yeah. And
then got called back to work. No more hanging around 40 years, walking around the wilderness. Get back to work, damn it. So those are the 2 that I usually use in meditations to build a bubble or
protect yourself.
Negative stuff out.
Yeah.
Negative's a bad term. Stuff that's not for my highest good.
Unwanted. Yeah. Exactly. Unwanted things, especially in the middle of the night. When I was 18, this is probably one of the scariest experiences I had. Didn't really know what it was. I was at my mom's house and I was sleeping, and and they call it like sleep paralysis or something, but I had something holding me down.
It's dead people.
And I couldn't move. And I finally could get out of it. And then I started going, you know, falling back, and it happened again. Like, I could not move out of my body. And I got up, and I was not obviously super, super close to my mom. I went to my mom's room and slept with her. I was like, I got to come cuddle with you, because I was so scared. But now, like, over the years, I have all these different things that happened at night. And I'm like, you know, for so much, people just kind of brush it off. And I stopped brushing any of it off and put the puzzle pieces together, like you said.
Yeah. Sleep paralysis, basically, it's a dead person you bring home with you.
Okay.
And it does that when the veil thins between that 3 and 4:30, gets more contact with you, and it basically is feeding off your adrenaline and your energy. And I've been good. I can get rid of them really easy. I'll take a deep breath and just say Michael. And I'll say Michael 3 times. And on my 3rd or 4th breath, I'll exhale and imagine a big fist coming out of my chest. And you can literally hear them go, and they get off you.
That's awesome.
July 6th, I think it was, no, sorry, January 6th or January 7th, January 5th, 2017, the last time I had a sleep paralysis event. And I couldn't think the word Michael. Imagine when you go to think to say it, you can't think it. It goes, and that was it. So that was scary. Yeah. So as I'm going through this and I can't move, and I'm looking at the clock, it was like 1 minute after 4 in the morning. I'm looking at the clock and I'm angry. And this thing growled in my ear, in my left ear. And the adrenaline goes. And I'm thinking, okay. Ascended Masters, here we go. And I was thinking, who should I use? Should I use Jesus? And as soon as I thought the word Jesus, the whole room cleared. It had never been that clear. You could smudge that thing for a year and never have had my bedroom that clear. Completely pristine, crystal clear. That's awesome. And I looked at the clock and it was now 20 after 4 or 25 after 4 or something. And so it lasted a while. And I went, oh, that was cool. And I fell into this wonderful sleep. Next morning, on the phone to my psychic buddy, what the hell happened? And she said, oh, you've got 3 guys in your room. You brought them home the day before. You were somewhere where your adrenaline spiked. They looked at you and said, we're going home with him. I said, no, I don't think so. Then it dawned on me, I helped a local police force arrest a guy. He was running through traffic and everything. And I had this big cap, like watch cap, I think you call them. We call them toques. Big furry coat, big snow boots, or big police boots. And it was actually the last day I had just retired as being a Mountie, and I was standing, and I was just on the way to the airport to pick up my kid. And I ended up getting out of the car, standing on a curb, which made me 6 inches taller than the kid anyway. And he came running towards me, and I looked down at him and said, I'm a policeman, you're going to have to stop. And he just looked up at me and froze. And I took him by the arm, handed him to the local police, got in the car, picked up my kid, went back, forgot all about it. But I guess my adrenaline spiked, and it was at one of the most haunted locations in this area. It was an old 1800s train station with metal rails going over top of a moving river. So the energy was just sparkly. And these guys said, screw that cop, we're going to go home with him. And it was 3 of them holding me down, and that's why I couldn't do anything. So we actually pushed them out into the yard, the psychic and I, because she and I, we actually clear people who are out of houses, dead people. That's awesome. She put them in kind of a little cage because she's weird that way. And she said, what do you want to do with them? I said, well, do you think we can cross them over? And we crossed all 3 of them over.
Well, that's awesome.
And the reasons they weren't crossing originally is they did criminal activity when they were alive, and they thought they would go to hell. So we had to explain to them and said, no, you're good. And, family members or whatever would come through, and we crossed them all over. But that's the last time I had sleep paralysis. And that was absolutely terrifying because I'm so good at getting rid of them.
And you couldn't do it.
But now if I can't get a hold of Michael, I know who to call.
Big man, right?
Literally thinking the word Jesus.
Interesting.
Holy cow. Holy cow. Shouldn't say that. Holy cow, Jesus. That was amazing. Because I was going to go, okay, Ascended Masters, we got Buddha, we got all these other guys. Oh, God, but Jesus, boom, holy, wow. They bailed. They cleared that space, and everything else in there cleared out. It was amazing.
Yeah, that is amazing.
So he's busy. I didn't want to bring him in from there's a war in Afghanistan. Why should I bother you about this? You omnipresent people, you.
Right.
Yeah. Here's something I want you to try. And I tried this. I took a card reading course because I wasn't sure how to. I don't get the kind of readings, and I don't think you do too. Like you're reading a card and you flip the card. Oh, you're gonna get in a car accident tomorrow, or you're gonna break your leg and fall. that's not for us. That's a whole other issue. But and I get that about you. The I was on a card reading course, basically learning just in case. You know, how do you broach negative? And I was with another policeman who's an intuitive, and she said, "Okay, read me." And I said, "I'm going to try something different." I have oracle cards. I went and grabbed, because we were upstairs in a woo-woo store, some woo-woo place. So I grabbed a bunch of business cards and I put 9 of them. I said, "Here's a handful, put 7 of them down." And she put them down with the words, like the name of the store up, and just the white side on the back. And I flipped them over and gave her a full reading. And that's when I realized, and that was, I guess you would call a download. Why would I do that? Why all of a sudden did that come into my head? And what it taught me is I just needed a focus point.
Okay.
So I focused. I even got that her son was going to be going to the doctor at the end of the month. And it wasn't what she thought it was going to be for. And she just looked at me like, how you're looking at business cards and you nailed that? I went, weird, huh? So I did it. And then from about that point on, I was telling you about the person that I was seeing stand beside them. I can just read basically from that person that'll come through, and they'll step through at the weirdest times. Like I was in a nightclub about to go upstairs and a woman was coming downstairs, and I looked at her and her grandmother was beside her screaming that she needed to pass a message on.
Oh my God.
That was awkward. Yeah. And, but that'll happen. And when I did a couple of UFO conferences. I was down in LA doing a UFO conference. I was talking to a lady, and all of a sudden a person comes in, looks at me and starts doing hand signals. That was weird. So that's where I've kind of expanded. That's why I was asking if you see things. I've also seen about a car length behind them, these large beings, like protective Aztec looking warriors, to things in like a Red Riding hood, but a really triangle hood in it, and shroud thing.
I see a lot of like glimpses, like in the corner of my eye. That's what I'll see. There was a time recently that there was like a presence, like a feeling on one of my sides, like a feeling of somebody there, and I saw a glimpse of somebody that I knew that had passed away. But it was almost like in my mind's eye, it's like you just see it real quick. Yeah. And then at the same time, this song that I kept hearing over and over and over again, that was told to me that it was going to mean something, started to play on my Alexa, and I was like, okay, this is crazy. What's going on? And that's what but I have never seen, and maybe because Leslie, the psychic that I go to, she told me from get-go, she said, you're scared of something. And I think when I was younger, I was intrigued by ghosts and psychics, but I was scared that I would see something come in my room. So she said, that's usually what can block you, because you're scared of it. And so I you can control some of this. So I'm like, what is okay with me and what isn't okay with me? So I haven't seen anybody. I don't know what would happen if I saw somebody walk in the room.
When you see them, like, I shouldn't say when you see them, but when I see them, and I'm not seeing a ghost, I'm seeing somebody who's crossed over and come back.
Okay.
It was like the lady that's on your left.
Okay.
Now, did your psychic ever tell you about who she is?
No, she told me a lot about my family, but she didn't tell me anybody. I don't know.
This lady's the goosebumps you get on your left arm.
Okay.
I
get goosebumps a lot, like when you were saying left, on both of my arms though.
Okay.
I get this weird tingling here on my crown sometimes.
Yeah, that could be her too. I think, because this is a guess. This isn't me going, oh, she is so-and-so. Mm-hmm. She's probably your mother's mother. Because it sounds like you get this woo-woo stuff from your mom's side. Mm-hmm. Do you have a sister?
No.
Okay. And most likely a mother kind of thing going on here, but I don't know. But she volunteers to come back, because that's what my mother does. She volunteers to come back and just be in between your spirit guides and you. So you don't have to raise your vibration all the way up to your spirit guides to get them to give you info. They can just really get her to make sure you don't turn left in a dark alley and get mugged. and start giving you the hair
the
on the back of
psychic
the
did
neck.
say that my mother's mother, her name's Margaret, she was the McDougal too, and she did say that, yeah, she was the one that like protects over everybody, and she told that I needed to reconnect with my mother too, and she got her dead on. But
Yeah.
she was a bit older than my mother's mother. My grandmother had my mom when she was 40, had twins at 40 back in the day. So, you know, I wasn't super, super close to her, but yeah, she did mention her in the reading for sure.
Yeah, she next time you're talking to her, ask her
Mhm.
if she's standing by your left, because there is a
Okay,
lady
I'm actually
standing
gonna see her, or not see her. Well, see her on Zoom on the 25th.
there. Oh,
So I
very
will
cool.
ask her about that.
Yeah. So
100%.
those are the ones I see. I don't see dead people that often
You
anymore.
see people coming back.
Yeah, these ones have crossed and come back.
Okay.
And I see the weird things, you know, car length behind people, the protective beings, but very few. I see those. I only saw them really on people I talked to, and they were from Central America or Mexico, their
Mm-hmm.
heritage. I saw the big kind of Aztec looking warrior, handsome, 6'8" or 7 foot tall guy. And then that weird thing that I got told was a reptilian. I saw that twice behind one person in Phoenix and one person in LA that I was doing a
Wow.
reading for. It was like I was told they were coming through looking at me like, so what are you doing? Like, but I don't see the face. It's completely black. And the psychic that pointed that out said, well, it's because they don't want you to see its face, because you're not going to, you're not going to be focusing on anything else at that point. Plus they don't want you to know who it is. They just gave you this, you know, Friar Tuck outfit with a weird pointed hood. So, okay, fine. Really don't want to see that anyway. But that,
My mom says she sees this, like she sees nothing but light. She says she sees light around everything, and everything, like the top of the roofs, the signs, everything is vibrating, like majorly going up and down like this. So it's just crazy to me that, like you, like I said, I guess from my mother's side.
yeah,
And, you know, when you work on your gifts, then just like anything, like exercise or anything, the more you work on it, the better you get at it, you know?
yeah. It's just exercising your psychic muscle,
Mm-hmm.
your
Yeah.
third eye thing, which I've only really opened my third eye once and saw the coolest things, made a lot of notes of them. Actually had like a 4 or 5 Sanskrit symbols. It was
That's
bizarre. It was great. And I did it through one of those things you get on YouTube, and where
uh-huh.
you can like activate your third eye meditation.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, which I hate those things, because they actually will take you through so relaxed, and all of a sudden at the end a loud voice comes in, okay, you can get up now, and it's like the cat on the ceiling with the claws. I'm relaxed now, 4 a.m. But yeah, so I had that. I found one of them and I did it, and I went, oh, that is so cool, I'll do it again. And nothing, never again. So I got to work on that. Now you do angel communication, don't you?
Well, yeah, I mean, by angel communication,
Wait.
I teach people how to basically communicate with the universe, and they can call it whatever they
Okay.
want. You know what I'm saying? Like
Yeah.
some people are like, well, angels, I don't believe. I'm like, you can communicate, it can be aliens, whatever you want to call it. Something is communicating with you, right?
Yeah.
And you have to pick up on the signals. And I always teach people, like you said, like certain hand symbols. You know, I will speak to my angels and just say, you know, I want to see this, or let me, you know, like I was saying earlier. And that's what I kind of teach with my coaching. I'm like, well, you know, you have all the answers to your life now. So communicate with your angels, start asking, ask to see this or what. So that's what I mean by communication with angels, kind of teaching. I just have gone on this journey, and I'm never have been more intrigued by this journey. I feel like this is the only journey to go on. And then everything I learn, I try to teach it to anybody that is willing or wants to, you know, develop their life. So if it's communicating with angels or whatever you want to call it, you know, like it doesn't, even with religion, all religion is pointing to the same thing. We're just, too many people are, you know, fighting about nonsense. But, you know, that's what I have a friend that's really into angels, and I don't get into a lot of different things with her because I know this is what she focuses on, angels.
Yeah.
And so I taught her, okay, this is how we communicate with them, ask them questions. And she started doing automatic writing, and I don't do automatic writing. I've tried it a couple of times. I told her about it, and she's really good at automatic writing and really good at communicating with angels, and she's almost better than I am when it comes to that, and her meditations and the things that she get. And it's just me planting seeds, like, hey, try this, see if this works, but make sure you're protecting yourself, you know.
Yeah.
That's always key.
Important,
Protection first, you know.
Yeah, see, the person that I see standing beside some people, I look at that as a relative. It's always a blood relative that I see. My friend who's a psychic calls that person a guardian angel. And then when I questioned her on it, she said, oh, that's a really long story and it's very complicated. But it can be deemed or termed your guardian angel is your grandmother kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
But I also see on your right side, you have 5 light beings that are also very high, extremely way higher vibration than the grandmother person. So are those, I don't know. I don't know what those are. Are they light beings? Are they light family? Are they angels? But they're extremely high vibration. So I don't know who they are. Again,
right.
ask psychic about the 5 lights to your right. So
interesting.
yeah, it is.
And
one of them.
That's what I think some people like get. Like my mom told me one time I was getting out of, this is recent, like I was getting out of a pool, and she said all this white light was coming off of me. And so, you know, I'm always intrigued what other people see, because I'm always surprised when I see things, you know. I'm like, what is that? Why am I seeing that? Why did like when I told you I started seeing the aura of this green coming off of this lady's shoulders, I was just like, what? And I know like the heart chakra is green. And so I was just, I don't know what, you know, I'm learning, and as I'm learning, I'm teaching people. But yeah, I've heard that, like, you know, angels are different because of the things that they've gone through. And then there's like the ancestors that you have, but all to me, it's like just communication. It's all just protection and communication. So
yeah, you're the 4th one over from your right shoulder is red. Reddish and very tall. So that could be an archangel, or it could be a light being. I don't know.
That's so cool.
Yeah. So, but they're very, very protected. And I always try to explain to people that the angel, you know, those kind of angels, yeah, they'll keep you from stepping out in front of a bus when it's not your time, but they also have your itinerary. So when it's time to step in front of a bus, they're the ones kicking your ass in front of the bus.
Exactly.
Yeah, they're not all fluffy and cuddly. They're here
know
for
what
a
you
reason.
signed up for.
Yeah.
You signed up for, and the lessons that even your death will teach other people. I think with this whole process too, I mean, I don't know what I'll be in the moment of my death, but I don't fear it anymore at all. You know, I just kind of like, it's just the next part of our journey. So
okay, I just wrote down what you just said. Our death will teach other people.
Mm-hmm.
That is one of the wonderful beer conversations a bunch of us have all the time when we talk about God and how God would allow a 2-year-old to die of cancer, or, you know, miscarriages and children deaths and things like that. And you've got to really take a step back from emotion and see what that short life actually does, and what the ripple effect in the family and outward was.
Mm-hmm.
And what lessons were supposed to have or learned by that.
Mm-hmm.
Or an atrocity, mass murders. I worked briefly on a serial killer here.
Mm-hmm.
And he admitted to killing 22 people, or he's found guilty of killing 22. He probably killed closer to 50. And as a result of, and they were sex trade workers, a lot of them being First Nations, or what you would call an American Indian, but in Canada it was more of the First Nations. What that atrocity spawned was a national inquiry on the way missing and murdered Indigenous women were reported and the murders were investigated. How many people would have had to die, and which, as a result of that investigation and that inquiry across the country, things were tweaked in investigations and reporting, and a lot of direction onto the Indian reserves on how the social housing and the psychiatric help with sexual abused people. It all came out of this inquiry.
Mm-hmm.
And the seeds were planted out of the inquiry, and it's still growing. So how many people had to die before that happened? Because that in itself will end up saving, 1,000 lives more.
Yeah.
So
yeah, and in the atrocity, there was still love there, because the love was that you could save other people from doing this,
So my belief system is they came into this life knowing that that's how they were going out. It was going to be horrible, but this was the gift they were giving the next generations.
Oh, yeah.
So, how many people had to die before the switch got flipped to inquiry? Was it going to be 5? Was it going to be 10? Oh, it had to be horrific. It had to make international news.
Mm-hmm.
And conversely, and this is another argument we can get into, is the coronavirus. How many people had to die before internationally a flip was switched to shut everything down, and the earth actually took a breath for about 90 days.
Mm-hmm.
And we've had 2 different bird species come into this area that hadn't been here for over 110 years. It's just because the pollution dropped, because there was no cars.
It's crazy.
The waters have cleaned up. The classic example is the canals of Venice. You could see the bottom. The pollution disappeared briefly.
It's crazy.
But
it's a ripple effect.
Yeah. So how many people had to get sick before the earth could take a breather?
Exactly.
And whether or not the earth still needs a breather. Crazy
Probably.
Apocalypse. Yeah.
I know, right?
What kind of oracle cards do you use?
I love Kyle Gray's decks. I have 2 of his decks, and then I have a mermaid deck. And then there was a woman that I followed for a long time on YouTube, but you were talking about trolls. She was having a lot of problem with like trolls and people following her, but she did a fairy deck. So I used those. So I have about 5 or 6 decks that I use, and whatever I'm called to that day. Because sometimes I'll be coaching people and I don't feel called to like use my cards. And then sometimes something is like, hey, pull a card for them. And then I'll have the same card fall out 3 times. And I'm just like, man, this is, I get surprised. I've done readings for people that I knew nothing about. They just, reached out to me, and then I'll, just pull the cards, and they're like, oh my God, that was right on. I'm like, again, these are the cards. I'm just giving you the information. I have no clue what's going on in your life, but this is what it says. So
it's funny you said you had some fairy cards, because when you were talking about dancing in your house, I wrote down fairy realm.
Yeah.
My youngest daughter is fairy realm.
Oh, is she?
Yeah. Which is, we had some issues with elemental beings in the last house we were in, because they were really pissy with the neighborhood, because it was all under construction and some underground creeks got thrown out of whack. And my oldest daughter, who's very high empath or intuitive, she had moved into the new house. I was still in the old one, and psychic. Oh, there's another time I had a timeout. I got completely shut down, and my spirit guides, it's allegedly, because I don't see them, but I was told. But when you get told by 2 different people that don't know each other the same thing, you kind of take it as, yeah, okay, fine. Okay. I got told I got shut down because I usually don't turn myself off. And the elementals were really pissed, and they were going to come up and basically cause havoc, however kind of havoc an elemental being causes with a person, probably depressions and all that stuff. but because they're pissed at the construction going on. And I said, well, what about my youngest daughter? And both psychics, again, individually, not knowing each other, said, oh, she's fairy realm. They're not going to go near her because that whole weird fairy realm side, I guess, is they can kick cosmic ass.
Oh,
So I was
really?
wondering if anyone told you were fairy realm.
No, but I have been intrigued in it, and I went to, because I do professionally by trade. I do I'm a mobile manicurist. I've been doing that for, I don't know, 17 years. And this year I got a new client here in the San Marcos area, and she owns like 180 acres. And I don't know how we got in a discussion, but she was talking about her land, and she had a like a psychic crew come out there, and they talked about the elementals being out on her land. And she told me this crazy story about how she went into a trance, and there was like a construction going on in her land, and she just started digging, and she started digging up all this artifacts in her yard, and was just like in this trance. And then people came out and were telling her about like this rare Indian tribe that was on her land and the elementals. It was just, it's crazy because you just vibe, people just vibe in your life with these like stories.
Yeah.
And I'm like, she was like, you got to come and explore this land. And I was like, I'm in. Like, let's do this.
Cool.
Yeah, it's crazy the amount of people that just, I think when you're more open to talk about things and it's not so woo-woo, you know, people just start going, let me tell you my story, because everybody has stories that they don't talk about.
Yeah, and that's the one positive that came out of all these paranormal TV shows from 10 or 15 years ago was people were talking, then started talking about the ghosts they saw. Their grandmother started talking about ghosts in their house. That spawned into the grandmothers being and grandfathers saying, yeah, we saw Bigfoot in the backyard. Oh, I've seen UFOs. So-and-so saw a UFO. Like, we're now, it's not uncommon for somebody to talk about it, and not everybody looks at them like they're nuts.
Exactly.
And which is a good thing.
It is.
And it's funny, as being a person who was involved in paranormal investigations, people with mental health issues actually do see ghosts too.
Yeah.
They can live in haunted places, and they can be harassed by all sorts of things. So, you know, just because a couple of crazy people said they saw ghosts doesn't mean everybody who sees a ghost is crazy.
Exactly.
They're
True.
all out there.
Yes.
Fun.
I know. And there's so many people. I mean, as soon as I like, when this, for some reason, like I said, I started doing YouTube, like something told me, you need to share your story. You need to share your story. Just put yourself out there. And as soon as I put myself out there, just friends of mine that I just would flood in with stories and stuff that I never knew about. But as soon as you put yourself out there, they're like, okay, since you're talking about this, let me talk about it with you. So it makes you also not feel so ostracized, you know? And so that's what I really wanted to create. Social media, I love social media, of creating this community of just being open and vulnerable and learning and being spiritual and telling their stories. I love telling like synchronistic stories, and I just love that. And people love hearing about it, and I love hearing theirs too. So
just stay out of those conspiracy chat groups.
oh yeah, I don't, my it's so funny because my dad loves, like, he loves stuff about aliens, and he can go down a conspiracy, you know, rabbit hole, which I've done before too, but I just know that it doesn't serve me, you know, like it doesn't make me feel good. And so I just kind of like, I don't know what's going on. There's something going on, but I'm gonna just stay here in my vibe and keep vibing out stuff. Cause those chat groups, those, you know.
I think I went through about 100 and some or more, 200 and some people on my Facebook page, and just had to go because they professed to be spiritual, but bought into the QAnon thing where there's cabals of pedophile rings and vampires and things. And it's like, dude, you're spiritual. No, I'm very spiritual, but I will build a wall around my house, stay in my house with my assault rifle, and keep the others away. That's not spiritual.
No.
You've hijacked the spirit, the awakening. Yes. You've hijacked it.
Yes.
You're in a cult.
You can see it. You can see it in people, especially right now with COVID and everything. You can see people going down into these and just fighting each other. And it's very interesting because people just continue to project these things on each other back and forth. So that's why it's so great to kind of stay neutral in everything. Just watch, observe, and just be neutral, and just be like, you know, I don't know. I don't know what's going on. And there's not much I can do but stay and focus on my vibration and what I can do in my little life, right?
Yeah, you've got your bag of puzzle pieces. They got their bag of puzzle pieces.
Exactly. That's their journey. You know?
Their puzzle pieces may all be completely round. but you have places to go with yours. I've interviewed people who like are UFO like authors right into UFO conspiracies, and I just put it to them. I said, it's one person's conspiracy is another person's policy.
Mm-hmm.
As a federal government employee for a quarter century or more, we had policy. It's not like, oh, we got to keep this away from everybody. We walk in with a piece of paper saying, what do I do with this? Oh, that's supposed to go into file cabinet 5. Okay, put it in 5. You don't know. You don't ask why 5, not 4, or not 6. Policy was it went into 5.
Mm-hmm.
So if someone phones up, and I would get this question a lot too. It'd come back to me if I'm being interviewed. Was a member of the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, what would you do, or what did you guys do when someone reported a UFO? And I said, beats the heck out of me. I would just probably take it. The file title would be Assist General Public. So it would be a file that would stay on the system until purged 7 years later.
Mm-hmm.
That's all it was. You took it for information only, because there was no, I saw a UFO. Okay, fine. We don't take these files, but we'll do it to humor you. I saw a UFO shooting laser beams, blowing up houses. Okay, we'll take that file. But what do you do with it? If it was blowing up houses and a lot of people saw it, you'd probably want to pass it on to somebody who had authority over that.
Mm-hmm.
It didn't happen. I shouldn't say it didn't happen or doesn't happen. We have historically taken UFO reports, not me, in all the time I worked. Mind you, I was only in uniform for about 9 years out of all that. The rest I was in major crime and organized crime and stuff. But good Lord, it's like, it's a policy. You follow policies in the government. And until policy changes, and if the US says we get a UFO report and we're not supposed to talk about it, because it's policy, it's not a conspiracy. Somebody decided 50 years ago, this is the file cabinet it went into.
Mm-hmm.
Until somebody decides to change policy, it is what it always has been. It was there for all the employees ahead of you, and it will be for the employees that come in after you, unless somebody changes policy at a higher level. So let's not get all conspiratorial about this. It's not about you.
Yeah, exactly.
It's
and that's not, that's not where my focus is,
Yeah. And that's like me. I go out. I same with the Bigfoot thing. I did a documentary. Actually, a little snippet of that is just released on YouTube today. A documentary on looking for Bigfoot. Oh, the government's keeping it from us. Yeah. Okay. Fine. File 5.
Right. It's like, okay.
File 5. They're going to keep it from you because, face it, with all those conspiracy things, if the only people who want disclosure are the people who can handle disclosure, all 12% of the population. It's the other ones people are going, they're getting like, right. Remember there was all those immigrants coming from some other country and we didn't want them to move into our country. And we were going to stay in our backyard with our bunker and keep them away. It's like, dude, how about we open the floodgates of UFOs and aliens? Okay, I'll be in the backyard in my bunker. It's like, right. Duh. Yeah. Anyway, I'm ranting now. I'm off on a rant. Step-by-step guidance. If somebody wants to get a hold of you and help kind of get, I shouldn't say get on path, but to have the path pointed out, where would they get a hold of you?
Instagram is probably the best way of getting a hold of me, is just DM me. That's what I tell people, is just to reach out to me. If you want to get like personal one-on-one coaching, or if you want a reading from me, you just DM me and we kind of go from there. So, or I mean, I've had people reach out to me on YouTube as well, but mostly Instagram is where I have mostly that community going, it would be Instagram is where
Okay,
I focus
What,
a lot of.
what is your Instagram account?
It is Jacqueline Rose Laws.
Jacqueline Rose Laws.
Yes. Like the
And
police.
Jacqueline spelt the French way.
Yes. Yes.
Jacqueline Rose Laws. Thanks for
Mhm.
coming by. I really appreciate this.
Thank you so much. I enjoyed it. I love hearing all your stories. That's awesome.
Yeah,
I live
I'm really bad at that. I'll invite somebody on to interview them, and I'll do all the talking.
No, I love it. I love it. It's natural to us, right? We got stories to tell. That's how we just, I'm the same way.
I am just chatty, which is
So
awesome.
am I. I get it.
Okay,
I
Jacqueline,
get it.
thanks again. And again, the YouTube is The Spiritual Life of Jacqueline Rose, and the Instagram
Is Jacqueline Rose Laws.
Excellent. Thanks for coming out.
Thank you so much.
That's it. Let's roll. Hey.
Let's be careful out.